Hey, everybody. Rod Wilt with Penn-Northwest Development Corporation, and welcome to another edition of Discover Mercer County Business Podcast. We want to thank Teal College and Paul Coatsworth here. We're broadcasting from the Pettis Communications Center here, state-of-the-art podcast studio. We want to thank Paul and his students for helping put this show up on YouTube. And, of course, from our office, Melinda Bowen-Hauk. She's our marketing membership. Swiss Army knife, jack of all trades, make sure everything comes off without a hitch, and want to thank her for scheduling what has turned out to be kind of the Power Woman day of putting the podcast together. And today we are thrilled to be joined by Katie Moldovan. She is a regional pharmacy leader with Rite Aid and a true homegrown talent. And we want to welcome in Katie. And Katie, thank you for joining us today, and really appreciate you coming on the show. And the whole object of this show, by the way, I'll put this camera on. The whole object of this show, by the way, is to just have people come and tell their Mercer County business stories. And you have a great one. So with no further ado, we're going to introduce everyone to Katie Moldovan, Mercer County homegrown regional pharmacy leader, Rite Aid Pharmacies. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for the introduction, for having me, Rod. I am so excited to be here. And again, following this powerhouse of a young lady that was on before, wow, what an honor to be even in the same category, let alone the same day. So,
Well,
Linda, for having me as well. Yeah.
and Katie, you know this, but a lot of people don't. You know, this is all about changing the narrative about Mercer County. And the fact of the matter is that we have a ton of the right people in the right seats at the right time right now to go fast. But before we get into your career, everyone's got their homegrown story. And I'm fascinated that we always kick off this show with a good 10, 15 minutes of just where you're from and how did you get going in the career that you now have.
Thank you. Well, I also appreciate you starting with my story and not career, because everybody likes to go to that first. And I'm like, hey, I'm more than just writing. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that. So again, I'm a Hermitage girl, born in Philadelphia, actually. So I was
I
born
did
in
not know that.
Yes, born in Philadelphia. So my dad is from Mercer County originally. My mom is from Oil City originally. To make a very long story short, two very tragic, unfortunately, family situations brought them together. So that was the silver lining. They actually met at downtown Penn State Shenango, taking a summer anatomy class, and the rest is history. So anyway, with that being said, when I was very young, we moved back to the area, and I'm so grateful that they did, because it was an incredible childhood, just a wonderful place to call home. But my story is when I was similar to Beth in high school, loved science and math. My parents are both in medicine. I knew that that's probably where I was going to land. Did a lot of odd end jobs before, quite honestly. Was a landscaper, was a newspaper delivery girl, worked at Daffins for a little bit, which was probably my favorite job, a lot of free samples. But, just did a lot of odd ends, and I ended up finding my path in pharmacy. Went to Duquesne for pharmacy school, lived there for 8 years, 6 years to get my doctorate of pharmacy, and then stayed for an additional 2, and moved back to the area for the same reasons that I remain in the area. Just a beautiful place to go home.
So let me go back and focus on the academics a little bit. So, excuse me, Hickory High School or Kennedy?
Kennedy.
That's what I thought.
Golden Eagle all the way.
Yeah, okay. That's okay.
Hey, you know what? I was going to say, I like it, but you know what? My sister and I were a year and a half apart. I have a brother who is 9 years younger than me. We always tease and say, was the heathen that went to Hickory. So, yeah. We love the Hickory Hornets as well and have representation of both.
Oh, that's great. But so from Kennedy to Duquesne, and you have to declare as in your freshman year that you're on the pharmacy track.
Correct. At that time, you did. So now I still think I'm young, but if you talk to the students now, I'm an old bag because I graduated 11 years ago. So yeah. So at that time, it was what they call 0 to 6 program. So you had to declare your freshman year, and you had to commit to a certain GPA and pass all your classes the first time around. And by luck and good fortune, I did those things. So I was in the doctorate program upon my acceptance freshman year. So yeah, so 6 years there. My sister also went there. She's a physician assistant and does orthopedic and spinal surgery in the area. We were a year and a half apart, and sibling rivalry is a real thing. So we were both on athletic teams there. She was on the track team. I was on the women's rowing team. So we kept ourselves busy and our head in the books as well.
So wait a minute. You don't learn how to row at Kennedy.
You don't.
Yeah. So how does that? I gotta spend a minute on that. I want to hear this story.
So Rachel and I both actually were offered partial Rachel scholarships for basketball. We did that at Kennedy. Now the funny thing is, I'm almost 6 feet tall, but I was the short girl on the team at that time. So we had to relearn guard positions, and then we saw the travel schedule, and I thought, my God, I'm going to fail all my classes if I'm only here 2 days in the month of December. So with that being said, I declined respectfully the offer. But then I got bored really quick, Rod, because I'm one that I'm always active. I love athletics. And I thought, geez, I need to do something. Now, Rachel accepted the track scholarship they gave her. And she said, you know what? You should go out for the rowing team. They're taking walk-ons. Well, I did, and it was actually a bet to my family because they made fun of me. I've capsized every canoe that I've ever been in. So I made it, and they ended up giving 4 girls a scholarship, and I was one of the 4. So, yeah.
So I don't know much about college rowing, but I love sports. So on women's crew in college, is it a 8-person, 6-person boat?
It is an 8-person boat. We also have speedboats that are 4-person. So you had to, in order to be in those boats, maintain a certain weight, which, oh my gosh, now I would love to be that weight. So anyway, I was actually in both the 4-person and the 8-person 6-seat, which is the powerhouse seat. So I used to be pretty good shape. Didn't have good precision, but I could get the job done there on the 6-seat or the 8-seat boat.
Don't you get yelled at a lot in crew though? Doesn't what's it called, a
Coxswain, yeah.
coxswain? Yes.
Which is always the shortest member of the team and the spiciest member of the team. So yeah, they are not afraid to let you know when you're messing up. Yeah, and they will call you out by name and number. So, but we used to actually, believe it or not, on the Ohio River there in Pittsburgh, 4 a.m. was our practice time. Not my favorite. Yeah, not my favorite.
There had to be a light on that boat then. So yeah, absolutely.
On us, making sure we didn't hit the barges.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 4 a.m. Mm-hmm.
And then who do you obviously competing against other schools? So where did that take you?
Good question. So always on the East Coast, we didn't have to do any kind of travel, but that wasn't too extreme. But Boston a lot. We of course competed right in house with Carnegie Mellon and Pitt. We shared a boat house with them, so always fun rivalry right there in the city.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and then Boston, Philadelphia primarily. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so you're now Dr. Katie Moldovan.
Yeah.
You walk across stage. You have all the cords, beautiful gown, nice collar. Yeah, the whole thing. And the career comes knocking. So talk to us a little bit about that.
So what I did is I always worked full-time when I was in school. Again, I'd keep myself out of trouble. So I was on the women's rowing team, was involved with different clubs and fun things at school, and then I worked actually at Giant Eagle as an intern. So there was a south side of Pittsburgh that I could bike to from my apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Would work there, and I decided actually to join Rite Aid when I graduated. So I was with Giant Eagle for 5 years. I actually got my start with Sam Daly at the Greenville Giant Eagle location. He was a great mentor and somebody that gave me a chance because I had actually applied to work at PennDOT as a flag girl. Mm-hmm. And it is my most.
Wait, that was just hopefully
yes.
I don't think a pharmacist, a flag. These are just summer jobs. Yeah, these are summer jobs along the way.
Jobs along the way. But how I got my start at Giant Eagle was when I was 18. I'd come home again, was going to do a summer job. I was already in pharmacy school at that point, but I needed an internship. A lot of places weren't hiring, and I thought, okay, well, I need to have a job so I can continue to pay my bills. Anyway, with that being said, it was my most successful career point. I was hired and furloughed in the same day. So, so it didn't work out. However, it worked out beautifully because I went into the Giant Eagle again in Greenville, and Sam gave me a chance. So I'm always grateful to him. Taught me a lot of good stuff, a lot of good one-liners, but a lot about pharmacy. So joined Rite Aid upon graduation for all the reasons that I chose Mercer County as a place to live. The values of family always came first. Even though it's a corporation and people like to beat me up all the time about being a corporate sellout, that's not the case at all. Rite Aid really has a culture where they are family focused first, and they have all the tools and resources of a corporation. So it allows for a lot of flexibility if I ever wanted to pick up and move, or if I ever wanted a promotional opportunity without having to move, which is something that I've explored a few times with the company. So that's why I joined them. And there was a young lady by the name of Carmen Romana who actually hired me at Rite Aid, who's from Beaver County, and she was overseeing the Mercer County stores. And again, it's amazing how the stars align sometimes. I just so happened to pop in one day when she was there. We met, both Italians, so we couldn't stop talking, and an hour and a half later I had a job. So, yeah.
Katie, that's great. Now Rite Aid's had some tough times over the years, though, right? So I love their stores. I mean, we got we always been Rite Aid, starting in Pittsburgh, but I don't know. We moved back from Pittsburgh, continued in the Greenville store. But, from a corporate perspective, I mean, you said you love their culture, but they've had to weather some storms. So,
Though, Rod. We
yeah.
are the third highest retailer in terms of corporations in the country. And if you look at the first, which is CVS, and the second, which is Walgreens, they've had some challenges as well. And I think what I enjoy most about Rite Aid is we are such a lean company that has proven its resiliency time and time again. The other thing that I enjoy about it is, I live here in Pennsylvania. They're a Pennsylvania-based organization that started in 1962 in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. So it's close to home. Again, had challenges, who hasn't? But we've weathered many storms and proven again why we care so much about our patients and the fact that we're willing to continue to work so hard to serve them.
So you also had a career uh, track though that is unique because you started behind the counter, and then somebody that has an interest in the business side. How does that? How do you get identified, and how did you kind of change lanes and move from behind the counter to the C-suite?
Sure, sure.
Although you're not so much of a C-suite because you're on the road a lot. So I don't know, but the C-suite might be the seat of your car at this point.
It is. I'm just going to get an RV instead of a house.
Yeah.
But with that, Beth had mentioned something that it really, hit me. And she said, the job I have now is not the job I ever anticipated that I would. And I thought that is such a relatable moment. I understand exactly what she means. The funny thing is, when I graduated from pharmacy school, again, my family's all in medicine, and they all worked for the most part in a hospital system. So I thought, I'm going to do a pharmacy residency, and I'm going to be a hospital-based pharmacist that is solely focused on rounding with patients and improving their adherence and reducing their, improving their healthcare outcomes, but reducing their mortality rates. And I couldn't be further from that if I tried. So it's funny how life takes you in a direction. Now, in saying that, when I started in a store, my first store actually that I managed was Greenville. My second store was Newcastle, Pennsylvania, and then from there I was promoted to my first field leadership role where I oversaw 30 pharmacies in the North Hills of Pittsburgh and into downtown. Um, what happened between point A and point B still sometimes has me questioning, how did I get here? But you start to, as you get more involved with taking care of your patients, have more of a vested interest of keeping yourself there. And the only way you can do that is by a true business appreciation. You have to make sure, especially in healthcare, with reimbursement rates the way they are for pharmacies, and without getting on too much of a tangent, you have to really fight for every dollar you earn. And the only way you can be here to take care of your patients, which is what drew you to the profession, is by having a business sense and not being naive to it. So this was something that I kind of learned along the way and then became very passionate about along the way, because in school you learn everything you need to take care of your patients. But there are some gaps, and you have to choose whether you want to stay, again, naive to them, or if you want to figure out how to make yourself a permanent fixture that you can continue to proliferate what you went to pharmacy school for. So it's something I get real fired up about as my hands start and the Italian comes out. But I truly love what I do, even on days when I hate it. And I think that that's something that's pretty special when you can say, even in moments that aren't great, this is exactly why I'm here and this is my purpose.
Yeah, we're talking with Katie Moldovan, Dr. Katie Moldovan, doctor of pharmacy and a regional pharmacy leader for Rite Aid here on the Discover Mercer County podcast. But so now you find yourself in a role where all of these skills and things that you've learned in the first decade, now you're in a role where you're kind of teaching your pharmacy leaders at the store level. And so talk a little bit about where your career sits now and what some of those job responsibilities are, because there's not many folks around that have a job like you have as a pharmacist.
That's very true. That's very true. So the funny thing is, before I decided to be a pharmacist, one of the careers that I thought I would pursue was a kindergarten teacher. So I do enjoy teaching very much, and I feel like this is the perfect harmony between both. I'm a pharmacist by trade. I still practice and maintain active licensure, and if I needed to step into a store today, it might not be pretty, but I'd still do what I needed to do. But I'm very much exactly a coach, a mentor, a teacher, and an educator in a sense. I have to be somebody that stays very close to what all the federal and state regulation updates are to make sure we're compliant. I have to be somebody that stays very clinically focused so I can get our pharmacy teams up with all cutting edge healthcare advances. But I have to be somebody who, again, inspires people to want to work hard for the right reasons. And that's something that I have always, regardless of what my title has been or how many stores I've worked with, I always wanted to maintain who I was and true to myself and not be corrupted by some of the challenges that are out there in these positions. So that's the one thing that I said. If I ever see that myself that I'm starting to change, then it's not the right job for me. So that's a nice thing. So now I'm working with 1,500 pharmacies along the east coast of Rite Aid, and I can still say I'm the same person today that I was 10 years ago when I started.
And how do you do that being based here in Mercer County? Because I think it's a real feather in the cap of our county that we have somebody like you who has such a senior position with a large company. But is your job really technology based now? How do you keep those touch points with so many different constituents that you have now?
Fair question. There's some days I do it better than others, but with that being said, it is. It's all about making sure that you're present, making sure that you're somebody who is putting people first, and task and business objectives a close second. But one of the things that I've always prided myself on is making sure that I have good communication, that I truly remain focused on what the important thing is, caring about your people that you're working with and serving, and then making sure that you're actively present. So there are no 2 days that are the same in this job, like most people, but I do travel quite a bit to make sure that everybody sees that, hey, you're working hard, but I'm working hard right here with you, and you have somebody that is still going to advocate for you and make sure that you're well cared for and happy in your job.
Yeah, so as a key component, the pharmacies is a key component to the healthcare delivery network across the country, but even locally and regionally. Tell me how your life has changed post COVID and how the business of pharmacy has changed because you have so many competitors now, the mail orders, and then we have the influx of the foreign drugs and the generics and all of that stuff. So, and you talked earlier about fighting for every dollar, but what is the state of the system right now when it comes to delivering such a key part of the healthcare system?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because you really are, other than that doctor's appointment, whether it's in person or online, I mean, you're really seeing the patient.
Yes, I would agree. So, and statistically, it's shown that the average person will see a doctor 4.5 times in a year, 4.8%, or 4.8 visits a year, excuse me. But you'll see your average pharmacy 16.7 times.
Wow, I didn't know. So 4 times as many.
4 times as many. So it is. The one thing that I will say, COVID is focused on heavily the negative aspects and the challenges it brought. The one thing I'll say for pharmacy is it really brought pharmacists to the forefront of the healthcare model, and it showed the value in a pharmacist. And
Mm.
honestly, I've never been more proud to be a pharmacist. Did we have challenges? Absolutely. Did we have staffing challenges, regulation challenges, all of those things that a lot of other people did? Absolutely. But the one thing that I focus on is it showed how pertinent we are and how important we are and the value in our role. And that's the thing that I think motivated a lot of people like myself to work as hard as we did to combat the challenges because it showed we are here, we're going to help, we are part of the solution, and you're not at this alone. It's a great moment.
And you're such an integral part of our Future Leaders Homegrown Initiative, where we're trying to connect young people with careers and opportunities that are right here under their fingertips that they may not know about. So, what do you say to that young guy, young girl sitting in high school, maybe has some interest in science or technology, engineering, math, or STEM students? What does the marketplace look like right now in your business, from the pharmacy techs all the way through that
Sure.
leadership role?
Okay, it's a great time to be a pharmacist or a pharmacy technician. Truly, there is ample opportunity for not only placement in jobs in areas that you are seeking, but also advancement opportunities if that's something that speaks to you. There are so many positions that have been created because of COVID. Positions that are remote now that never existed before. So it allows somebody, and that's part of the reason why I chose pharmacy. It allows you to have a family life and still be able to work, and there will always be relevance to the role and a need for the role. So I would say, hey, if you have any interest in it, give me a call because I can tell you all kind of reasons why you should be a pharmacist. What an incredible career, very fulfilling, and it still allows you to have a life outside of your career, which is also important.
And when you just to clear my head about it, when you visit the pharmacy, tell me the difference between the technician and the practicing pharmacist, and what is that? You gave us a real good look at what the career path is for the pharmacist, but what is the career path for the pharm tech?
Sure. Well, it's going to be company specific. I'll say that. far as the career path goes, again, it depends what your skill set is and what your interests are. But again, with Rite Aid, there's ample opportunity for you to get involved more than just the traditional filling and dispensing of prescriptions, which is one of the key roles and arguably the most important. But if that's something that attracts you and you want to stay, wonderful. But if that's something that you think, okay, maybe in 5 or 10 years I want to do something a little bit different, either with more scope or more flexibility or whatever it is. Again, 41 job codes within Rite Aid for pharmacists, 18 for pharmacy technicians. We have people that are immunizing. We have people that are leading forums of education. We have people that are down in Washington, D.C. advocating for bill reform. And that's with both pharmacists and technicians. So there's, again, I can speak to Rite Aid confidently. I can't speak to all others.
Yeah.
There's a host of opportunity out there.
Well, and what we're all about at Penn-Northwest through our Future Leaders Homegrown Initiative is really explaining the opportunity that exists here in Mercer County for people that are talented, but wherever they get off the education ladder. But you've really taken a strong leadership position with our Homegrown Initiative. What does that speak to with you? I mean, I'm homegrown relative. I've been here, left, came back. You've been here, left, came back. But why does this speak to you? What drew you to this movement that we're creating here in this county?
So I think we're very similar, if I can, Rod, where we both do our research. So whenever I decide to attach my name and my time and energy to something, it's because I see that it's something special. And that's what I see with Homegrown. Truthfully, not only do you see it in the 35 of us that are a part of this group that all have day jobs, but are truly so committed to a volunteer group. It's like something I've never seen before, the amount of commitment. But we're all drawn by the same thing. It's not for self-proclamation or fulfillment or for even personal growth. It's because we've all chosen to call this home and we want to see it succeed because we have a vested interest in the area for it to succeed. And for me personally, I love this group just because you have people from all walks of life, different work experiences, different strengths that they bring to the table, different viewpoints, and it all meshes so well, and it shows exactly what our community is. It's like a small, sample size, if you will, of what Mercer County is. All different career paths, all walks of life, all people with different life experiences, but they genuinely care about one another succeeding, and they care because they want to see the entire community succeed. I love it.
And Katie, do you feel, and obviously you do, but I want you to articulate why you feel this way. Do you see that the program can be successful by making those meaningful connections? Because I grew up a generation ahead of you, but my reality was growing up on a college campus, so I had these older mentors, not in the per se they were doing anything formal, but at least they showed me what my life might be like 10 years, 5 years from. But can we be successful in rebuilding this community with this initiative? Do you really think the key is the information gap? Because that's where I think it is, but maybe there's something else there.
I would agree. I think, again, it's perception and education gap, and the perception is based on the education gap. I think it goes hand in hand. So, again, you start to believe what you hear. So if you hear it enough that there isn't anything going on, there's nothing to do here, there are no jobs, if you want an executive position, you got to move. If you hear that enough, you really start to believe it. So I agree with you. It is an education gap because obviously living proof, all these people that have been here today and people that I work with in this group or work with at Rite Aid that all live right here but have taken on advancement opportunities or have nice families here or met somebody here, have great social events here. Absolutely. If you hear it enough, you start to believe it. But I do think that there is an educational gap. And another thing is I think we need more people that take a vested interest in this area. One of the things that when we first met, Rod, it was one of my favorite things that you've said. And you've said a lot of good things, but this one really stood out to me. You said, if you see your downtown and you don't like it, you have a moral responsibility to change it. And I thought, that's a powerful message. And more people need to hear that because it's very easy to be the victim and say what's wrong with the situation. It's not easy to be a part of the solution to correct it. And that's why
Yeah, I think, Katie, that all of us that are working on this initiative really take it upon ourselves to say, you know what, there's been a lot of great people come before us that had a lot of great ideas, and they kept things together, and we made some gains in some areas. But overall, I think we all regardless of our politics, regardless of what our occupation might be, regardless of whether we're from the northern part of the county or the Shenango Valley or Grove City, we all got to kind of get over it and understand that we really do have a calling to rebuild this community. I've been fortunate in business, politics, all this stuff I've done to carve out a nice career for myself. But I tell people the reason I'm excited about what we're doing now is not too many people get presented the opportunity to build a community. And that's what we're really trying to do here. So, as you hear that, it seems like a monumental task, but how do you carve out Katie Moldovan's piece of that pie? What is it that you're focused on within this initiative?
My thing, and I have said this before, great area to call home, but there is that gap that you see with that 18 to 40 group that maybe is fresh out of school, not quite married yet, kind of at the beginning of their career, and they're figuring out, do I roll the dice and plant roots here, or do I just kind of stick around and see what happens and leave? And that's kind of the group that I fall in. So I think that that's my piece of the pie, and why my focus is so heavy on that is we need to focus on that transient piece of that pie and keep those people here and show them you can meet the love of your life here. You can have a nice career. You can find a nice home and start to plant some roots. And again, as we've talked about, it still allows you the flexibility to travel, to see some things, to have new experiences. You don't have to move to a city to fully appreciate it. You can visit from time to time and still be here in an area where people actually genuinely look out for you, care about you. And again, you can have a lot of people. I just read an article actually 2 days ago. They said the millennials will never know what having a backyard is like because they can't afford it. Because everybody's moving to these cities in the hopes of chasing a dream. And we have something here. Not only could you have a backyard, you could have a pretty nice house, you could have a nice neighborhood, you could have a nice life. And again, I love it. That's why I stay around.
Katie, what a powerful message, and I'm going to incorporate that into my vernacular. That that the recent studies show that millennials will never know what it's like to have a backyard. And we're sitting here at the beautiful Pettis Communications Center, the podcast studio. I'm looking out over a beautiful sun-splashed Teal College campus. Just beautiful outside, and we just love our community in this county. And I really, really appreciate you living out your story with us in Mercer County. It's it really, to me, energizes me as the air quote leader at Penn-Northwest. But I feel like the father, soon to be the grandfather of this initiative, about how we move this county forward with all of the great things we have going on here. So.
Well, it's a wonderful thing. Well, thank you for creating the vision so we could all follow along here. But somebody needed to spearhead it, and there's a lot of energy surrounding it, a lot of excitement, and it's amazing the turnout. Especially, like I said, that's my focal point. So that's what I bring to the group: the turnout that we've had, and the more people that have approached us with interest and excitement that we're here and we're doing these things.
Well, we say on this show that we bring together the movers and shakers and newsmakers, and Katie Moldovan, you are certainly one of those, and we really want to thank you for being with us. And to our listeners, you've been watching and listening to the Discover Mercer County podcast here from Teal College and the Pettis Communications Center. We want to thank Dr. Katie Moldovan, a regional pharmacy leader with Rite Aid, who has just created a beautiful life and career for herself right here in Mercer County. We want to thank, again, Paul Coatsworth and his students at Teal College for making the broadcast possible. And again, from our office, Melinda Bowen-Hauk, who is our marketing and communications and everything else manager that keeps me on schedule and on time. So thank you again for listening to the Discover Mercer County podcast. It's Rod Wild, and we'll see you again next time.